Hi, I'm Kathie Zipp with Craft Brewing Business magazine. Welcome to another edition of CBB on the Scene, a series in which we visit different breweries in a certain region to kind of get the story of what's going on in the scene there. And today we're continuing our Cleveland series, and we're at Platform Beer Company in the tap room, and I'm here with Paul Benner. He is the co-founder and owner of Platform. So thanks for being here, Paul.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you.
Sure, it's always fun to talk about beer, right? So let's continue that conversation and talk about what we're drinking right now.
Yeah, sure. Nailed that intro, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
So we are starting with one of our hazy IPAs. So we do a rotating series of hazy IPAs that we call our small batch IPA series.
Okay.
So this is our newest release. It's called No I in Team. And hazy IPA is kind of a really fun beer for me to talk about because it's kind of new. It's been a trend over the last maybe 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And it's grown to become one of the more popular versions of IPA on the market today. It's brewed a little differently with some different ingredients that give it some different character. First off, you can see that it's very hazy.
Yes.
So it's not just a clever name, right? It
no,
actually
you
is
cannot
a hazy
see
beer,
through
right?
it. Yes.
So the reasoning for it being such an opaque style beer is it uses an incredible amount of adjuncts. Adjuncts are anything other than barley, hops, wheat. Anything other than barley from a cereal grain perspective. So we use a lot of wheat and we use a lot of malted oats in this product, which stays in suspension. So it leaves a really nice hazy character. You also notice it's got a really brilliant white head on it. It comes from all the proteins in the beer. And then also, because it's still in suspension, all of those adjuncts, it's going to drink a little heavier and have a really great mouthfeel, as opposed to maybe a West Coast style IPA or an IPA that's been run through a filter.
Right, it's beautiful color, perfect head on it. It's a beautiful beer, and I'm excited to drink it. Cheers. So cheers, yes. That's perfect for this time of year.
You'd also notice this kind of New England style IPA is also it's referred to.
Yeah.
It's going to drink a little sweeter than maybe the West Coast styles that tend to be really bitter. And it's interesting when I talk to customers all the time that maybe aren't really into IPA. They'll say, I just really don't like IPAs. Right. Typically, they don't like bitter bombs that strip the enamel off of your teeth, right? That's kind of what we've been used to over the last 10 years in American craft beer, really bitter IPAs.
Right.
That is attained by using a lot of hops really early on in the boil process, and that leaves a lot of those bittering oils still in suspension in the beer.
Right.
Now, as opposed to a New England style or hazy IPA, we use all of our hops either after boil or in the fermenter. So what you're left with is a product that does not linger very bitter, on your palate, but really has a ton of forward aroma and flavor of the hops that we use. And we use a lot of exotic hops in this series. We try and get a variety from not only North America, but from all over the world to give different characters to the style.
Well, I'm definitely one of those people that doesn't always reach for an IPA, but when I find one I like, I go for it.
There's still, you are still out there, right?
Yes. But this is delicious,
Yeah,
and so cheers to that for sure.
Thank you.
So now I'd really love to learn a little bit more about how Platform came to be, how you started it, what your vision was for the space.
Yeah. Well, my love for beer really started, it didn't start in college. My love for beer started in college. Let me back up.
Once you were 21, right?
Yeah, sure. My love for good craft beer started when I lived in Colorado. I moved there in 2006. Right out of college, me and my girlfriend, future wife at the time, moved out there just for the hell of it, right? We both found jobs pretty quickly, and we started to become immersed in the different cultures of Colorado and realized that at every festival, every event, every get-together, beer was really an integral part of what was going on in the community. And there were these tap room locations throughout the cities that we would visit and the city in which we lived that were very different than the brewery environment that I was used to in the Midwest when I lived in Cleveland. They were very open and airy, and you could go get a beer by yourself. There was no host or hostess there when you walked in the door. They didn't sit you at a table, and you didn't have to wait until your server came and asked to give you a beer and then get your second beer when the server decided to come back.
Less restaurant style environment.
Totally. You didn't have to eat while you're there. Most of the places didn't even offer food, which for a Midwesterner 10 years ago was absurd. Like, you go in a place, I gotta eat if I'm gonna go somewhere
Right.
and have a beer. So these spaces I just absolutely fell in love with, and I loved the vibe that they were giving off. So I moved back to Cleveland in 2008 and had this new appreciation for craft beer in general. Realized that the market here had not really evolved yet to what it was on the West Coast, which makes sense. I started brewing beer because I was really interested in the finished product and also wanted to learn more about the process. So I brewed my first beer with my dad in 2010, and I know exactly what the style was. I called it a spring wheat, which I've come to realize that that doesn't really exist. There's no
That
such
makes
thing as a
sense.
spring
It sounds
wheat.
good.
It does. It sounds really good. The beer I thought was the best thing that had ever been created, and it probably tasted like shit. Sorry, you have to edit that out.
That's okay.
It didn't taste very good. Let's just say that, I'm sure. But the point was, the process of making the beer was so enjoyable, and I so became obsessed with it that I knew somehow that I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. I didn't know what that meant. I definitely didn't think it meant opening a brewery later on in my life. But as I did research, I realized that there was a need for a full-service a full-service homebrew shop in the city of Cleveland. So I started doing research. I opened the Cleveland Brew Shop in 2012, and that was my first foray into the beer world. And from there, my passion continued to grow, and as there was an opportunity that came along with me and my co-partner and founder, Justin Carson. We found a building in Ohio City that you're sitting in now. It definitely did not look like this 4.5 years ago when we opened.
Do you know what it had been before?
Yes, so this was the old antique district of Cleveland.
Okay.
So down the lane here, there was a number of antique stores that people from the city and from the suburbs would come and visit. This was one of them. And they moved out it's 3 or 4 years before we bought the building, and pretty much left everything. And when I say antique, that word is used pretty loosely, right? It was mostly junk, right? We kept some of it and reused some of it. But previous to that, this building is over 100 years old, and it was originally built as a Hungarian social club. So there's a bowling alley in here at one point. If you actually look down, you can see that we're sitting on bowling alley floors that are original to the building.
Ah, yes. I didn't even notice till you said that, but absolutely. Those thin strips of wood, that's definitely a bowling alley.
It was a place that families in the community of Hungarian descent would come for birthday parties, events, get-togethers, things like that. And we transformed it into a brew pub, and that's really what we wanted to do. We had this 3-year plan of opening a brew pub here that was very much inspired by my experience in Colorado. Open, airy, only did beer, only did draft beer, only really high quality products. We didn't really have any food service from day one. We weren't going to be a restaurant. I never wanted to own a restaurant. I still don't want to own a restaurant. But I wanted to focus everything on just the beer in the joint.
Well, I think that's a fantastic vision, and who knew how quickly it was going to take off?
Not us. Definitely not us, that's for sure.
So tell me a little bit now, you started in 2014, and then 4 years later, now where are you in terms of number of locations and your annual production?
Right, so our first year in business, we produced 97 barrels of beer. We have grown to the point in 2018 we'll finish at about 27,000 barrels of beer.
Wow, that is a difference.
Right. Yeah, so we've
we've
doubled production in 17, more than doubled production in 17, and added another 10,000 barrels of production in 2018. And we're still really not able to keep up with demand for our products. It's been a long, it's been a grind to grow at the rate that we have, but we see huge opportunity in the market still, and for some reason people have connected with our brand and they've been buying a lot of our beer, so that's good.
Well, it's good beer, like I said, so that's a part of it. So since you started, the Cleveland beer scene has just exploded, the craft beer scene.
Yep.
There's lots of different breweries now, and so how does that kind of competition affect your business and kind of affect the craft brewing industry as a whole, even outside of Cleveland, since you do distribute to, was it 7 other states?
We're in a total of 7 states, which includes Ohio.
Okay. So how do you kind of view all that?
Yeah, so we opened 4.5 years ago, very different landscape. It's amazing what's happened in less than 5 years in craft beer, and which is 5 years before we opened, same deal, right? So first off, the market is still, craft beer as in general is still growing at a nice rate. So we'll be up 5% craft beer total in sales nationally in 2018, which is a good thing. So we're still growing. And we're not growing at the same rate we were the year that we opened. We've seen on average the last few years about 1,000 breweries open nationally each year. We'll see 1,000 open in 2018.
Wow.
And we still haven't seen a lot of breweries closing, like not even close to the same rate at breweries are open. We're over, I think, 7,000 or 8,000 breweries now nationally.
Right. I heard even like how you said you didn't want to own a restaurant. Compared to the restaurant business, or a lot of businesses, the rate of success for craft breweries is pretty high.
Yeah, I mean the close rate versus open rate is still way off. So what we've seen mostly is the growth of the tap room in the last 3 to 4 years. So those are breweries that are producing, somewhere under 2,000 barrels of beer in their facilities. The majority of that or all of that being poured across the bar. The margins are higher. You can be in a neighborhood where you're attracting people locally, and then breweries also are a magnet for people around the region to go visit. And that's really been the biggest, I guess that's pushing the growth of number of breweries that are opening.
Okay.
So I think the more competitive market isn't necessarily on premise, but it's on shelves at stores and on tap at bars and restaurants. Mm-hmm. So we've seen, a number of breweries opening since we have opened. But I think what the market is doing is it's seeing more of a push toward a hyper-local movement. So the folks that are really struggling to continue to keep tap handles and shelf space are those large regional breweries maybe that aren't local here to Cleveland and then Ohio or the Midwest. They've seen some of their velocity in retail start to be picked away at by local competition. As far as like more breweries opening in Cleveland, we think that this is something that, if we look more macro at the city of Cleveland, this can be something that from a regional perspective is a huge draw for folks who want to come and visit our city. And not only visit our city, but leave with having a great experience because our tap room environment here in Cleveland is very strong and it's very vibrant. So we welcome more breweries to open. That's not a problem. I think it's going to be more the fight for distribution. If a brewery wants to open tomorrow and start distributing, in all of Ohio and then multiple states throughout, that's going to be more of a challenge than it was when we opened, and then definitely 10 years ago.
I want to touch on a couple points there. So you talk about more of a challenge than when you opened. So do you think it's been very recent, it's only been 4 years, but if you had opened just a year or two later, or even today, do you think you would have seen the same rate of growth or success?
I mean, the quick answer is no, absolutely not. I think that we've been open almost 5 years. I feel like we got in at a point where there was still a lot of excitement for new brands to distribute beer on shelves and in bars and restaurants. So we were adopted pretty quickly by local restaurants, and our customer base was excited for us to start distributing beer. But we didn't start distributing in cans and kegs from day one either. We even though we've grown quickly, we really have done it I feel like in the right phases. So 6 months to a year of just pouring over the bar, creating a brand for ourselves, creating some following for our products, then start to leak out a small amount of beer here locally, and then we've slowly each year added new markets. I say slowly, but we've added new markets, and then we've started to meet the demand that was needed in those markets as well. So if we would have started today, the opportunity to get into bars and restaurants immediately would have been really tough, much more challenging than it was 4 or 5 years ago, because there's so many great products available, and there's so many great products available that are made locally. So we have, we're approved at all of our major chains that we need to be in. The numbers are showing that we're selling really well in those locations. The velocity is strong. So there's not necessarily any reason for a retailer to say we're not going to carry your product anymore, because the consumer is enjoying it, and it's more of a risk for them to take on maybe a new customer that isn't as established at this point.
So that kind of leads me into a question about brand loyalty. Do you think that brand loyalty exists in the craft beer, and is it maybe different than some of the domestic space? Because I know part of the excitement for me as a craft beer drinker, I definitely have my favorites, but I do like to try a little bit of everything.
Sure. I think there's a difference between brand loyalty and maybe product loyalty. My feeling is in craft beer, maybe 5 years ago, folks were more loyal to a very specific product that a brand made. Okay, so I like this IPA, and that's my favorite IPA. I'm just going to keep getting that because I know what I'm getting. We feel like we have folks that are loyal to our brand in general. Our brand is not one that we're pushing one product over and over and over again, or a small number of products. We have an incredible variety of products that we offer, and what we hope and what we've seen is that our customers are going to reach for a platform product, and there's a good chance that there's probably something new that they haven't tried yet. And we've built the equity with that customer that they'll say, well, I've been happy with what platform has done in the past. I know that they're pretty innovative. I know that they do a lot of different styles and maybe things that I normally wouldn't try. I'm gonna go ahead and give that a chance, and I feel confident that I can get the variety that I need from supporting one brand, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and you brought up another good point too about kind of part of platform brand is that you are innovative. Your customers expect you to come out with different things all the time, and they're okay with trying different kinds. And so I think that's an interesting strategy too, because it seems like your approach is you do come out with lots of different kinds of beer through the year, and then you do have your staples. So some of them are sitting behind us. So how has that worked out for you as far as with your customers? It seems like they're fans, but also your accounts, keeping your distribution on the shelf. How is that all? Has it been successful for you as far as sales and your strategy?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways that we sell our packaged product. First is in retail, so that's going to be at grocery chain stores, bottle shops, bars and restaurants, convenience stores, things like that. And what we've done is we have these rotating styles of beer. So for example, we're drinking our small batch IPA series. So this is a series of beer, so it's under the same UPC. So as we change that every 45 days, it's the same UPC. It's really easy for them to, from like a process perspective, keep that new product on the shelf.
I
Just
see.
keep a new supply coming.
Okay.
So it's our task then to come up with innovative things to continue to put on shelves that people are interested in trying. Okay. The other way that we sell product is direct to consumer. So we have 2 tasting rooms open. We're opening a 3rd one right now as we sit. It'll be open in January of 2019. That'll be in Cincinnati. So our Cleveland location, our Columbus location, Cincinnati, they all not only are tap rooms that help us have a presence in the local market and connect with customers on a face-to-face level, they also are a place where we can sell direct to consumer in our packages. So we come up with really unique styles of beers, things like slushy sours or milkshake IPA styles or barrel age offerings, or we have an entire facility dedicated to just sour beer production in barrels. So those are things that we're not gonna necessarily have widely distributed, but if you come on a Saturday morning for a special release of one of those, you can grab a 4-pack, 6-pack to go. We have seen people leaving with 3-4 cases of this stuff because it's kind of that FOMO factor, right?
Right.
Like this is a product you're probably not going to be able to get anywhere else unless you go to the source. And that's also been a model that is not unique to us, but we feel in our market is something that's been good for us. It's been great for us because it allows us to make some really interesting products. And it's a model that's been happening on the coasts a little longer and has been successful. We're seeing more successful tap rooms because of that, the direct-to-consumer piece.
Very interesting. So how many beers are you working on at a time? And then how many do you release a year?
Right, so we're fortunate that we have a facility that we're sitting in right now that has 10 fermenters. We brew into twice a week. and it's 100% considered our R&D facility. All right, we have a location in Columbus, same deal. And then we have our production facility where anything that goes into a can and most of our widely distributed keg products are produced there. So what that means is that our brewers here at this facility and in Columbus, they're always trying new stuff. They're encouraged, they're really forced to try new stuff. We'll pitch them an idea. Like, for example, a couple months ago, we said, hey, we would really like to try something that like mimics a horchata. So then our R&D brewer is like, well, I don't really know what a horchata is, so I got to do some research on what that is.
Of course, I Google that. Yeah.
I'll understand what ingredients are in it. I'll source those ingredients. I'll start, tinkering with them to figure out a recipe that I think is going to conceptually work. Then they'll brew it, and then we put it on draft here. Our customers, get to do, actual real-time feedback. We can understand through sales, and then through just testimonials and reviews, face-to-face with our bar staff if things are working or if they're not working. So to answer your second question, or first question, how many, or what are we working on right now? We're always working on new stuff. We have to, because we're innovative.
Multiple new things
at a time. That's what we want to be.
Yeah.
That's what we want to be, a very innovative brewery. How many beers do we produce? I pulled the numbers recently. In 2018, we will have packaged, so that's put in a can at our production facility, 80 unique styles of beer.
Wow.
So that's a new can package every 4.5 days.
That's crazy.
Which is absurd.
It is absurd.
That's not how most, production breweries work. They'll pick their top, 5 to 7, 8 beers, and they'll produce those. They'll have a rotating seasonal, maybe a one-off here or there. We're basically all one-offs, because we want to stay relevant. We want to try new things. That's how we like to brew. Here at the pub here in Cleveland, they will have brewed 96 beers in 2018, 96 batches of beers, and maybe a dozen of those are repeats. They're almost all single styles, unique stuff that will be on at the pub, and then when they're done, and they'll be retired, and we'll probably never make them again.
So you kind of have, you do have your core set of beers that you're always making. Is there ever a chance for one of those other beers to kind of, stay around for years to come as well, or?
That's not how we're approaching things. We have 2 beers that we make year round. New Cleveland, which is a kind of a hybrid Pilsner Pale Ale style, 5%, really easy drinking. And then we have Speed Merchant, which is our house IPA. Other than that, it's all different. So 27,000 barrels of beer that we'll brew this year. The vast majority of that is going to be not our staple.
So the staples are established, and they will just continue to be those staples, and then the rest will just be rotating, exciting, and new things to try.
Exactly.
So one new thing that you do have going on is you just came up with a line of hard seltzers.
Yes.
And I think that's so interesting. I didn't know that that would even come from a brewery, but they're so popular now. There's many different varieties out there. So tell me a little bit about why you decided to get into that market, and what's it like being a brewery creating a hard seltzer?
Sure. Well, for us, we've always tried to stay in touch with our customer base, right? So as customers are demanding certain types of styles and products, and they're growing in popularity, we want to see if that's something we should look into. And again, because we have such a robust R&D opportunity here, we can try out different things and different techniques to understand if it's something that works for us. We looked at the data that showed the incredible growth of hard seltzer over the last 12 months, and we kind of turned our R&D team loose. So they did an incredible amount of research, talked to numerous suppliers of ingredients, of fruit, of flavoring, all of that, and we started doing test batches here months ago. So it's been a process that's taken quite a long time for us, quite frankly. But we got to a point where we realized that the majority of the equipment that we had in-house to make beer, we could also utilize to make this hard seltzer product.
Wow.
Yeah, so there was some additional specialized filtration that we had to invest in, but we had the equipment, we have gained the know-how, and I think we're doing it in a little different way maybe than some of the products that are on the market are, but in a really great way, in my opinion.
Well, I tried one earlier and it was
Yeah.
delicious. And
Thank you.
I'm a hard seltzer drinker, even regular seltzer, and it's delicious. I'm very excited for the summertime to have those, but I mean, they're delicious all year round.
Thank you.
So that's really cool. And so kind of going back to distribution for a minute. So Platform kind of started immediately canning its beers, using cans and distributing right away. So why did you choose to go that route, and why the cans versus bottles? And
So in 2018, it was the first year that cans in craft beer actually eclipsed bottles in the amount of production nationally. So now there's more canned craft beer than there is bottled craft beer. 5 years ago, that wasn't the case. Definitely not. So why did we do cans? A couple reasons. First, from a quality perspective, they have a seam on them that is much more, it's much tighter than a bottle cap, essentially. So we're always trying to avoid oxygen getting into beer because it can start to stale beer and just the shelf life doesn't stay up. So that's quality. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It also is completely impervious to light, which is important. So there's no skunking of the beer over time. Even brown bottles, if you can see through it, light can get through it as well. And at the end of the day, I kind of just liked drinking beer in cans, craft beer in cans. And like being the owner, I can say this is what we're gonna do.
You make the decisions.
Right? It wasn't a huge thing back then. And we also think about how we're positioning ourselves in the market versus our competition if we're going to start distributing our beer in package. And there really wasn't any canned beer in city at that point. Now, there's a lot of breweries that are canning beer. Even breweries that were bottling beer when we first started are now canning beer as well. So that's the reason. It's also, I've come to realize that now that we're doing it on a production scale, cans are much lighter than bottles to move around. They're less dangerous if something were to fall or pop or explode. There's a lot of really common sense reasons why it makes sense now. I'm realizing, but at the beginning it was more just like I really like drinking beer out of a can.
It was a preference, but it turns out to be better for the product as well.
In our opinion,
right?
In our opinion, yeah.
In your opinion. So speaking of canning, let's talk about the equipment you use.
Sure.
So what brand and size of the canning line do you use? Are you doing mobile canning, labeling machines? What kind of techniques are you using there?
Yeah, so the early days of Platform, when we were just producing beer out of this location, we did use a mobile canner that would come in every Saturday. It was a really romantic time, right? So we would get all set up at 9 in the morning. We'd get volunteers every Saturday to come and do pack outs. So they'd put the 6-packs on top of the cans, they'd put them in cases, and then we would literally take that beer that day and distribute it to our few customers that we had at the time.
Wow.
So it would all be sold that Saturday. It would be packaged and just sold and dropped off about 100 cases every Saturday.
Can't get any fresher than that.
Yeah, it was actually amazing.
Wow.
It was great.
But that would not work nowadays.
No, that probably not would work nowadays.
Yeah.
So we self-distribute our own beer, which is really important. So we had the flexibility to do things like that. But we have upgraded quite a few times since we opened the production facility. We're now running on 2 canning lines that sit right next to each other. The brand is Palmer. Palmer is an American brand here. Our canning lines can do between 120 and 140 cans a minute. We have a 12-ounce canning line that's dedicated to just 12-ounce cans, and we have a canning line that's dedicated to just 16-ounce cans, so that we have we don't have to change over when we're going from one package to the other.
Which beers do you choose to put in a 16-ounce versus a traditional size?
It's a good question. So we've dedicated all of our sour cans, or all of our sour beer, to go in 16-ounce cans. We also do a lot of our tap room special releases go in 16-ounce cans. And things that maybe we want to price a little differently from a strategic perspective than a 6-pack. Maybe something that is really high ABV. If you were to put that in a 6-pack, it'd be really expensive. You can get a little less volume in maybe a 4-pack of 16-ounce cans, but charge a little more reasonable price for it. So there's actually a lot of thought and strategy that goes to it. But in general, all of our sours are going to go in 16-ounce cans, and most of our barrel aged stuff is going to go in 16 as well.
Okay, I was just curious about
Yeah.
that. And then what size brew house do you have, and what kind of other investments have you made in addition to what you're doing there?
Numerous. So we started with a 3-barrel brewing system at this location in 2014. We upgraded to a 10-barrel, which is what we have now here at this location. When we opened the production facility, we started with a 30-barrel brew house, and then we upgraded in 2017 to a 60-barrel brew house. So it's one of the bigger brew houses in the system, and it's bigger than we needed at the time, so it allows us to really grow for years and years without having to invest in another brew system. So we have 4 size breweries, which is really unique from a brewing perspective because it allows us to do different batch sizes and not have to commit an incredible amount of resources to one product per se. When we do tap room releases, we can do a 30-barrel batch, get 300 cases, and that's not an incredible amount of beer for us to sell, and most of that is sold over the bar. We're also supplying all of our bars with beer as well, so we sell a lot of beer on draft. Investments have been all over the place at the production facility. We've had to invest in warehouse, cold storage. Our lab and our quality control program has really been it's a feather in our cap, I believe. We've got the type of resources and equipment and staff for a brewery probably twice the size that we operate
Wow.
on. But again, the point is let's invest now, do things the right way, have these processes in place to have consistent product, and also allows us to sleep at night because we know, we're putting out beer that is not going to have any spoilage, bacterias or wild yeast. It's going to be fresh. It's not going to be hindered by oxidation anytime soon. And we just know we're putting out a consistent product. So that's been one investment that we've made, that we've put a significant amount of resources in. And then other investments have come as needed at the brewery.
Going back to food for a minute, so the way you said you didn't want to own a restaurant, you're not looking to own a restaurant, but you do serve some food in your tap room. So it seems you have guests come in, or you have chefs actually come in and do little pop-ups. You have a little space for them to operate. So tell me more about that and why you chose to go that direction.
Yeah, we realized pretty quickly when we opened that people still expect to get something to eat while they're here, and we also want them to stick around a little bit longer and enjoy our beer, right? So we saw kind of an interesting opportunity to partner with, most of these places were startups that didn't have a brick and mortar location that really needed some place they needed a platform, right? To showcase their skills and to sell their product. So we would have them kind of rotate each day that they had of the week, and you would come in, and on a Monday would be a taco joint, Tuesday would be burgers, Thursday would be not. I mean, it's different every day of the week. So that was a really cool experience. It also got us to meet a lot of really interesting people who have gone on to do really incredible things. A lot of them have opened restaurants that have been real successful, which is great. It helps build our network. We are considering putting more of a kind of a dedicated food program at our locations. As we've getting closer to opening Cincinnati, we've realized that we do need to do food in-house down there. So it's been something that we've been putting a lot of time and energy into, and a lot of thought on how we want to do that. So we're considering also mimicking that at our other locations. We'll see, but for almost 5 years now, it's been utilizing outside vendors, which has been it's been great, and it's something that a lot of other breweries have utilized as well, using food trucks and the like.
Why do you feel the need to do that? You said you feel like you need to have it at Cincinnati. Is that for competition's sake, or is it just the logistics of it, making sure there's somebody always coming in and there?
That space is going to be different because it's going to be open at 7 a.m. and close at midnight.
Okay.
So it's going to have a coffee component to it as well. And because of that, we really needed to have, it would be tough to have rotating vendors in there during the morning and in the evening. And we've got a little bit more space to do what we need to do there. And we think we can do something in a small space that's really creative, fresh, fits with our brand, isn't over the top, isn't like French fries or something like that.
Right.
It's going to be something that's really clean and hopefully tastes really good and going to be, moderately priced.
That's excellent. Very exciting. So just a couple questions here. So in addition to partnering with different chefs and restaurants coming in, you also partner with a lot of nonprofits. I understand
Right.
you do a weekly nonprofit night to help those organizations. So tell me a little bit about that and why that's important to you.
Yeah, it's funny. So I handled for a very long time. I handled all of our intake of the questions. Like somebody would go on on our website, they'd send a request, it would go to me. All right. So I was answering. I noticed every day multiple requests for donations or some type of sponsorship, and I kind of was like starting to get to me. I'm like, man, I'm saying no to like a lot of probably great causes because I just financially can't say yes to everybody that asks, right? So we had a general manager in Columbus that had, I got an idea. Why don't we just, carve out a day that's not traditionally that busy on Tuesdays and just say yes to everybody that asks. Say, yes, here's your day. You'll have a fundraiser. For every beer that we sell there, we'll give you $1 toward your cause. And then you can organize and have the space to promote your organization. Treat it as a fundraiser for yourself too. Raffle off things, do memorabilia, and it was just a way really to start saying yes to people.
That's fantastic. After saying no to everybody, you could say yes to pretty much everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I understand why they do it. They have to reach out and they have to, have to raise a lot of money for these organizations. What it's allowed us to do, and this has now been happening for a year and a half, and it's in Cleveland and it's in Columbus every Tuesday at each location. And by the way, we're booked through like the next 8 months.
I imagine.
Every Tuesday.
Right.
It's allowed us to not only give back a lot of money to the community, but also get to meet some really fun and interesting people and be involved in like these really, really great causes that we've rolled into other sponsorships with some of these people and other, promotions, and we've even collaborated on beers for some of these organizations, and it's been a really rewarding experience for us.
That's really great. Yeah. I love how you value the networking and just meeting new people and new organizations around town.
Right.
So last question, you touched on this a little bit, but what's next for Platform? You talked about getting into Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. What else are you looking to do, or what else can we expect in 2019 and beyond? Yeah, I mean,
we self-distribute our own beer in the 3 major markets, so Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Dayton, also Dayton, so 4 markets. Which means we make the beer, we warehouse the beer in our own facility, we sell the beer with our own salespeople, and then we deliver the beer with our own trucks. And we are still barely in about half of the total accounts that we could be in the state of Ohio. So 2019, we're going to continue to fill out our distribution map and continue to add more accounts to distribute more beer in the state. We also sell our beer in 6 other states. So we're going to continue to invest in those different markets. And for us, the tap room is a very, very important piece to what we do. So making sure that our Cleveland tap room is very strong, our Columbus tap room continues to stay strong, and then getting Cincinnati opened on the right foot, and really just being considered a member of the brewing community in all 3 of those markets is something that's really important for us. What's next? We'll continue to innovate with our product offering. If you asked me 6 months ago if we're going to be making hard seltzer, I would have laughed at you, right? However, we understand that as the craft beer market evolves, Platform needs to evolve as well and be open-minded to certain things, and we'll continue to do that as well.
It'll be very exciting to see what will come. So thank you so much for your time, Paul. Really appreciate it. And cheers. Thanks for the great beer. Cheers
Thanks for being here.
Good things coming.
Cheers.